Welcome to the Real Estate Niche Show, a show that focuses on top real estate professionals who specialize in different niches of real estate. My name is Ben Kogut. Join me as we dive deep into the professional and personal lives of the experts of the real estate industry. Welcome to the Real Estate Niche Show. I'm your host, Ben Kogut, and today we have Steve Fithian on the show. Steve is a friend of mine from the Society of Exchange Counselors, my involvement in that. He is one removed, the former president of that organization, which is a very prestigious position to be within that organization. He's a real estate broker, he's a syndicator, and he's just an all-around great guy. Steve, welcome to the Real Estate Niche Show. How are you today? And is there anything in particular that you'd like to mention that I didn't share in that brief bio?
No, I think that's sufficient. But thank you, Ben. Very happy to be on the show, and it's going to be fun. I look forward to it.
Awesome. Let's dive in. It's the Real Estate Niche Show. What is your real estate niche, and how did you get involved in it?
Right now, it's syndications. I've done syndications since the early 90s, but I've also acted as a commercial real estate broker, also have property management companies. So I've worn several hats, but what I personally enjoy doing is the syndication side. And so I do have the ability to choose at this point in my life. And so that's what I'm choosing to do is focus on syndications.
I love it. So let's go a little bit back. So you started in the 90s. I started 4 years ago. And so I'm curious, what's changed in the syndication business from when you started until now? Maybe share some lessons learned along the way.
Well, I'm really going to date myself. The first group investment I did was in 1979, and that was right out of college. And I had student loans, so I actually had a negative net worth as opposed to cash. And so the only way I could do a deal was to get some friends or family involved. So I did the very first one with my best friend from high school in 1979. So that started me in the career. But it's starting full-time in the real estate business was 10 years later. So I had a first career that I worked in. And so real estate was my passion while I worked in another career. And then over that 10-year period of time, I was working toward the goal of being able to do this full-time.
Nice. What were some of the early syndications that you got involved in?
Well, the early properties that I did were houses, duplexes, and then growing, to 10 units, 20 units. So that's what I cut my teeth in was starting with houses and then into multifamily.
Got it. And when was there a point when you made an actual transition from the smaller properties into, because I know you do a lot of bigger properties now. And what was it like? What was that journey like for you?
There was one transition, and that was from single family to say 40 units, and that was in the early 80s, probably about 83. But that was a pretty significant change going from the house to apartments. Then the other big change, I could guess, would be in about 1990. When the size of the apartment complexes, we took another jump because I moved from California to Texas. And so things were just bigger in Texas. And so in about a 3-year period of time in the early 90s, we bought 1,000 units and had 1,000 units for a while. So that was another transition. And then probably the third transition was about 2002 when I did a syndication and did it full-blown private place as my first private placement memorandum, even though I'd been doing syndications group investments for years before that. So 2002 was another turning point.
Got it. Yeah. Okay. So let's get to that point. I'm curious, what was that first deal that you're talking about with the PPM?
That was a multifamily deal in Arlington, Texas. It was an institutional grade property, and we competed against REITs and others in the acquisition, and we were successful. And my game plan, the business plan, was to convert that into individual condos and then sell off the individual units. We had a large investor base from California, And so that was a nice project. And then we started selling the units. They sold very well. And then the economy just stopped abruptly in about 2008. And so that kind of ended our individual sale program.
Got it. And so I'm a capital raiser professionally. That's what I do. And I'm wondering, what was it like for you raising capital for that first deal with the PPM?
That at that time was the largest raise that I'd done, and it was about a $3 million raise. The total acquisition was a $10 million deal. So it was hectic, to say the least. Had 4 kids at that time, and long ago we had scheduled a trip to Disneyland. And so I was at Disneyland and, that and wanting to go to the beach, and my kids standing in the hotel waiting for me. And I was raising money and deep into, the legal part of the transaction. So my kids still remember that to this day, that Dad was not all that much fun that week, when we were on vacation. So.
Got it. Yeah, I understand that it's very difficult to raise capital. And so let's maybe fast forward a little bit. I know that you have also done non-multifamily syndications. Maybe talk a little bit about what kind of syndications have you done there, and maybe some of the lessons learned along that journey.
Okay. I've done syndications in land, retail, office, industrial, self-storage, but really my focus right now is industrial. I mean, I just think it's a great space to be in at this point. Mm-hmm. But this year I've done 2 office buildings as well, because I came across what I thought were fantastic opportunities. So.
Got it. And so, man, you have literally decades more of experience than I do. And I'm curious, what advice would you have for somebody that's trying to raise capital, or maybe like talk about how is it raising capital now versus how it used to be? I'm just out of curiosity.
Wow. The period of time that I raised the most, that I got introduced to the most number of people in a short period of time, was somewhere back in the, 2010 timeframe. I don't remember exactly, but for about a 2.5-year period of time, Robert Kiyosaki was touring across the country. And I was fortunate enough to get hooked up with him and got to go to multiple sites with him. So we did 2 shows in Dallas, 2 in LA, 2 in the Bay Area. And it was phenomenal because he could obviously attract a very wide audience. And we were doing breakout sessions and be on the main stage with him and things. So those were very exciting times. And it enabled us to reach a lot of people in a very quick period of time.
Wow. That's amazing. I didn't know that. Keep going. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Well, no. So that was by far the most success we had in raising funds.
Oh my gosh. So just about every podcast or any speaker is going to say something about Rich Dad, Poor Dad and Robert Kiyosaki and all the influence that he's had. But I've never actually talked to anybody that actually got to do business with him the way that you did. And so, wow. So how did that come to be? What was that first transaction that you guys got to do business with?
Well, it was the local radio station in Dallas was going to do a real estate event, and they reached out to me and involved sitting down with the manager of their operation and just brainstorming on what a successful event would be. And so I worked on that event, and it was frankly the station, the national network, that talked Robert into doing that. And so in the very first show in Dallas, they asked me if there was going to be 3 of us in a panel discussion, and they asked if I wanted to do it. And so it was phenomenal. And what happened before that is Robert wanted to meet all of us individually. So we met in a small room, and he asked me about my background and the deals I was doing, and asked me, if I was to do a new deal right now, what would I be, looking for? And so it was bizarre. And so then right after that, we went to dinner. A limo picked us up, and Kim, his wife, got into the limo, and he said, sit next to Steve. He's got some great ideas that I want you to hear. So that was how I met him.
Wow, that's an incredible story. I love that. And so I guess he must have been vetting you because you were going to get to benefit from being affiliated with Robert Kiyosaki, which is really a prestigious name in this industry, as far as I'm concerned. And so you were on stage, and then there was an opportunity for people to reach out to you and connect with you, and maybe that, and so you were able to kind of build a database of potential investors after that show. Is that more or less correct?
Correct. That's correct. And that went on. I mean, that over the maybe a 2.5 year period, he was doing these events. And so again, we did them in multiple cities. And then I started going to California after that because so many of them were from California, and I'm from California as well. So it was just a good way to go and meet in the local REI groups and things like that, to continue the relationships I had and to expand them as well.
Got it. Very, very cool. And so that was 2010. A lot's happened since then until now. When did you start getting involved in the society?
About 16 years ago.
16 years ago. Okay. And so for those people that aren't familiar with the Society of Exchange Counselors, would you mind, just to the extent that you want, sharing what that organization is and, maybe some of the values and the qualities and some of the things that actually occur in there? And just so you know, I don't know if you know this, Mark Lechner and Jason Mittman and Jason Dillard and several others have already I've had the honor of interviewing on the Real Estate Niche Show. So.
Okay. All right. Well, it's a 60-year-old organization that started in California. It is now national. It's been national actually for many, many years. And it originally was focused on strictly just exchanging, but direct exchanging, as opposed to how most people do it now with closing a transaction, putting the money with a QI, and then locating your property. Here it was, direct exchanges. But today, the group is far more than that. I mean, there's developers in the room, large owners of real estate, transactional brokers, note buyers. So it is just a tremendous organization. And I'm a member of a lot of different real estate organizations and have my CCIM and different other designations. But the SEC affiliation has by far been the best affiliation for me, not only in the quality of the contacts of the people that I've met and the relationships, but also financially, it has been the most rewarding relationship. So I'm going to drink there just for a second. I've just recently had COVID and still recovering. So.
Oh, got it. No worries. Yeah, I can second that. That's how I feel about my involvement in the society as well. Just all the incredible relationships and investors and business partners and wisdom and education. I mean, it's really been a game changer for me. And so I want to thank you and the society for all the hard work that y'all do to put together some incredible meetings. And it's an honor to get to attend those. So I just want to mention that. And so I know that you have done some deals with other members of the society. And so that's what I was getting to and wanted to see if you could share a little bit about what you've done, how those deals came to be, and maybe some lessons learned along that journey.
Okay. Well, the most recent transaction I've done with SEC members, there's two members, Jason Mittman and Stuart Scoville, give them a little press. And so it kind of evolved over a year period of time. And so where it ended up being, because there was a couple other properties involved that got pulled out, but it ended up being we have a 100,000 square foot industrial portfolio in Kentucky, Florence, Kentucky, and a retail center in Burleson, Texas, and then a single tenant industrial property in Wichita, Texas. And so Jason and Stuart wanted to acquire those three assets. Those were all syndications that I put together. And then they had a retail center in Temple, Texas, a retail center in Longview, Texas, and Stuart had 16 lots in Louisville, Kentucky. So they offered to exchange those three properties plus cash, because our three transactions were quite a bit larger than the ones that they were giving up. So they exchanged those properties plus cash for our properties. And so that closed roughly right at the end of the year. I mean, middle of December.
Nice. Congratulations on that closing. And so
Thank you.
what did it take to, because what you're saying is not really typical. Would you agree with that? And what does it take to do something so creative?
Well, knowing creative people, but not just creative people that have integrity and that they have a track record. Because I mean, on my side, there was a lot of moving parts on my side. The retail center had a CMBS loan on it that had to be defeased. And so that is a very complicated process, and it was an expensive process on my side as the owner of that property or the syndicator to do that. And once we pulled the trigger to defease that loan, we incurred costs that were reversible. So I wanted to be able to, in that transaction, make sure I could trust the buyer, had confidence that they would close. And I had done previous business with Jason and Stuart, and it worked out very well. And I got to know their abilities and that they, what they said they would carry through with. So it was very important in a transaction like this. Also, the three transactions that I was selling, they were syndications, but they were three separate syndications. They were not common partners. And so when you're putting those together and having a simultaneous closing, that is very difficult and challenging. And so again, I needed to make sure that I had partners on the other side, the buyers that I could trust. I knew they were capable and that they could pull it off.
Well, I've known Jason for over 20 years and Stuart, great guys. And so I'm really pleased to hear that y'all were able to get that creative transaction completed. That's really wonderful. And so I know that you have raised capital recently on a variety of different deals. And so what I'd like to know about in today's day and age, I don't think you're, as far as I know, you're not touring with Robert Kiyosaki anymore. What is your strategy for raising capital recently?
Well, the good news is I've been doing this now for 33 years professionally. I mean, before my other career or after my other career. And so I obviously have fortunately, a pretty good database. And I stay in front of that database all the time, as far as staying in touch with them, what are called drip campaigns. But also I'm old fashioned. I'm on the phone. And so, I mean, I have some clientele that I've had for 30 years and they're very good friends. So one property that I put together back a year ago, exactly a year ago, I had a couple different syndications that I was actively working on. I came across a third property. I wanted to do it, but it was a $12 million deal, needed a $3 million raise. And with everything I was going on with these other properties, I didn't have the bandwidth to do another private placement memorandum and worry about raising another $3 million. So I picked up the phone and called two investors that I've known for years. We've done a lot of deals together. And so the three of us did that deal. And then I didn't have to focus on everything that's involved in raising money in a syndication. So how do I do it? The database and some deals, smaller deals, I'll just pick up the phone and there'll be 3 to 7 of us that'll do it. If it's a much larger transaction, I do have even an equity partner that I can tap, and then he can go out to his base and raise money. So that's on. I mean, like we've done, a $20 million deal, $27 million deal, and so if it's something like that, I'll typically reach out to him and we will, if you want to say, co-syndicate it.
Got it. And what I'm hearing underneath all of that in what is relationships and integrity and with your incredible track record, I'm sure that you guys could pretty much get whatever you want to get done as long as it's a good deal and makes sense. So that's pretty exciting.
Well, is what now the difficult thing is finding the property. That's extremely difficult. And of course, SEC is another great forum for finding partners as well. And that's been very successful for me there as well.
So let's take that point and move forward a little bit. What do you have coming down the pipeline, or maybe more broadly, what kind of trends or opportunities are you pursuing, or like what can you share kind of looking forward?
Well, the transactions that I just closed with Stuart and Jason, and then we closed another one of our syndicated properties as well. So December was a huge closing month for us. So now I'm looking for exchange properties. So they wouldn't be, quote, new syndications. They would be, properties to satisfy these exchange requirements. That being said, I'm always looking for deals that I could syndicate. And so I have two properties right now that we've had LOIs accepted. And so I'm in the process of working contracts and starting to get the due diligence done on them.
Can you, at a high level, share what would a deal look like that you would get excited about to potentially syndicate?
Well, let me give you an example of one that we closed in 2021. It was an office flex property, and I prefer industrial. But what attracted me with this property was that it was 60% occupied, and I could buy it on existing income right now at a 6 cap. And when we lease that 40%, well, then it jumps to a 13 cap. So, and it was in a market that I was already familiar with. We've acquired quite a few properties in Ohio, and they've been extremely successful. And so, and it's not only that, it's in an area that I have existing management and leasing team. So an area that I like, the product was in very good condition, had a high quality tenant. And so we purchased that with 60% occupancy. We forecasted it would take a year to find a tenant. And the key tenant that's in there, it's 3 spaces, and that there's a credit tenant in there. And so we are now negotiating with them for them to expand into the remaining space that would make us 100% occupied. So hoping that that'll come together, and then I'll have some very good news for my investors that we were able to do it a lot faster than we had originally projected.
Nice. Well, I'll cross my fingers and hope you guys are able to land that. That'd be wonderful. Great. Well, let's keep moving forward. We're going to pivot a little bit, Steve, and we're going to talk a little bit about you. And the question I want to throw your way is, how do you like to invest, either professionally or personally, in yourself?
Well, I'm all about that, and I mean that goes all the way back to college. I mean, I tried to choose the location very well, not for sports teams or whatever. I mean, I wanted a good education, and I feel very fortunate that I was able to get a good education. And then through the job choices, originally I became a CPA, and that was very good for my career as well. It nurtured my analytical ability that's helped me throughout the years, in my real estate activities. I'm a big reader, and I've done a lot of, reading on real estate and just general business. And I try, I have to obviously keep my certifications up. So I do the education for that, but I'm always looking for additional ways to get education. SEC, my gosh, what a unbelievable way that is to learn new stuff. I mean, if I'm going to tackle a product that I've never done before, or maybe a situation comes up with a tenant. COVID was a big example. We had a lot of retail properties with exposure during COVID, and being able to reach out to SEC members that had more experience than I did in those areas. So just continue to seek out those relationships. So I have key people that I have now in different areas that are a lot more knowledgeable in those areas than I am. And so I try to get, more knowledge all the time, whether it be from individual relationships with people. I mean, I read several newspapers. So I subscribe to the Wall Street Journal, Dallas News, and business journals, and just always just looking for information that will help me out, both, professionally, but also personally.
Yep. Education is definitely a important value and topic. So next question, Steve, is how do you like to invest in the community?
Well, I'm involved a lot with a couple of churches, and so I have a passion for special needs people, and that started with a cousin that has special needs, and been around her all my life, and so that's what I've chosen to do. And so just about every week that I'm in town, really every week, I'm involved in that program, and so that's probably the most active involvement that I have. But I try to give charitably as well. And then there's organizations that I'm a member of that will have different events that I've participated in. But the special needs part of it is what I'm involved in on a regular basis and have been for quite a few years.
That's amazing. Thanks for sharing that. And last question is, how does Steve Fithian define the word success?
Yeah, you sprung that on me right at the very beginning, and then you started asking me other questions, so I haven't really been able to think that through.
Don't overthink it.
Well, I guess success to me is on many factors. It's on a personal level. I have 4 kids, and I'm proud of those 4 kids, and so to me, that's success. Being able to have 4 grown kids and be very proud of them, and feel that my wife and I had a part in raising them up, and they're doing well, and they're healthy, they're emotionally healthy. So that makes me feel very good. I'm very fortunate that I have a couple successful and strong businesses, all built around the real estate industry, and I have some people that are involved in those that have been with me 15 years, that I know their kids, I know their family, and it makes me feel proud to to see that. So again, I think that I think of that as success. It makes me feel very good. Excuse me, to have that.
Got it. Well, those are definitely successful qualities, and congrats on having a wonderful family. Congrats on a really incredible career over the years. And we're going to kind of start winding things down here a little bit, Steve. And so I really just want to thank you for sharing so much of your wisdom and experience, and for being a friend, and for all the wonderful things that are going on within the society and all that good stuff. And so if somebody wanted to reach out to you to get a hold of you, what would be the best way for them to do that?
Well, they could email me, and my email address is steve.fithian, Fithian, @svn.com. S is in Sam, V is in Victor, N is in Nancy.com.
Got it. And if they wanted to learn anything more about your syndications or your brokerage, maybe now would be a great time to share some websites or any other links that we can add in the show notes.
All right. The brokerage website is, Google SVN Trinity Advisors. It's svntrinity.com. Our residential property management company, if anybody has properties in the DFW area, is frontlineproperty.com. And those would be the main websites. The syndications were still kind of in the embryonic stage of actually branding them. And so we will have a website for that. But frankly, just my own personal email is how people could reach me, and I could get them information on specific syndications.
Got it. Perfect. Well, thank you for coming on the Real Estate Niche Show. Are there any other parting words or anything you want to mention before we shut it down?
This was fun. I appreciate you leading me along and giving me the opportunity to do it. And I've watched a couple of other shows and enjoyed them. So you've got a new subscriber here. So
awesome. Well, we'll take it one at a time. And to that point, for anybody that's listening, I would really appreciate hitting the subscribe button, giving us a review, and plus any other feedback is what's going to really help us take this to the next level. And so on that note, Steve, thanks again for coming on the Real Estate Niche Show, and I'll see you at the next SET meeting.
Sounds good. Thank you, Ben. Take care.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Real Estate Niche Show. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review. To catch all the latest from me or the show, you can follow me on Instagram at Ben Kogut and at The Real Estate Niche Show. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.